I am Dr. Vivian Atud. If you're joining us live on any of our platforms, you are welcome. So there are 46 days left. There are 46 days left. 46 days until a regulation goes live that will require every enterprise deploying artificial intelligence in hiring, in lending, in healthcare, in education to prove that these artificial intelligence they are applying is safe, is accountable, and under human control. And according to 78% of enterprises that have been assessed across industries, they are not ready. They are not ready for what is coming. So this episode, it's not a warning. This episode, it's a roadmap. So I am going to show you what the law actually requires, why a policy document won't save you, and why companies that treat this as a trust building opportunity instead of a compliance burden are about to build an unbeatable system. So, and I am going to talk to you today about a three-step framework that every leader, every board, every founder needs to execute before the clock hits zero. Because guess what? The truth about countdowns is that they don't care if you're actually ready, they just run. Countdowns just run. So you're welcome to the Clarity Mandate podcast. If you're just joining us, if you're joining us live, you're welcome. If you're joining us on our other podcast rebroadcast channels. Thank you for joining us. I am Dr. Vivian Atud, and I am a strategist, a governance strategist, also a co-founder of my ClearPath AI, which exists for exactly a moment like this. We help organizations in that part of my business with governance architecture that really earns trust and help organizations make compliance a competitive weapon, not looking at compliance as something that is a checkbox. So I've spent over 2 decades in rooms where policies and power intersect, whether you're looking at rooms at the African Union, rooms at bilateral and international organizations, enterprise risk roundtables looking at different government institutions. So when I tell you that the most important governance story of 2026, uh, I'm not talking about headlines. I am working from a framework of what we are really seeing on the ground. So let's start with the fact and let's not talk about the hype on this episode. A document that was released by the European Union, this is verified legal facts, in August of 2024. The EU enacted Regulation 2024/1689, the EU AI Act. And guess what? This was the world's first comprehensive horizontal legal framework for artificial intelligence. It applies to any organizations whose AI systems affect EU residents. So that means that whether you are an American company, you're an African company, you're an Asian company, in phases. Let's look at this. And let's look at one of the most consequential phase of this particular law. And this is called 2026 in about 40 something days, 46 days. And HR decisions considered high risk, AI used in credit and lending systems, AI used in healthcare, AI used in education, amongst other core sectors. These were the key that were named in the law. And in terms of the law's enforcement, It's talking about critical infrastructure. So these are not kind of edge cases. These are core enterprise functions. So now, in May of this year, EU institutions reach a provisional, call it political agreement to defer the high risk deadline for standalone systems. And this was deferred to December 2nd of 2027. And some leaders hearing these are kind of happy, but here is why thinking about this and being excited about this extension can be an expensive mistake for any enterprise risk management. Think about this. Formal adoption and publication in the official journals are expected in the coming weeks. Until that really happens, August 2nd, 2026 remains an active compliance date that is still in effect. So, talk about the deferral for political reasons. It's not enacted law, but the current law that exists still has the August 2nd date. So, this has not been published. So, if you're waiting for the deferral to actually come into effect, it's not yet been published. So, if any organization sits back and you want to plan around deferral, in a world where if you look at institutions like Cloud Security Alliance, they are saying, please take enterprise risk seriously. And what does that mean? That means that the clock is still running and most enterprises are not ready for it. So let's look at the readiness gap. Let's look at what is really being seen on the ground. So let me give you some numbers because the readiness gap is not just an opinion, it's documented across six separate research bodies in the last 6 months. So 78% of enterprises across 8 industries are not compliant. So this is documented research by Vision Compliance Readiness report that was published in April of this year. If you look at more than 50%, another research says, of organizations are still or they still lack basic AI system inventory. So they don't even know what kind of AI they're adopting. I mean, I always say this like a joke. I mean, you are in the office and you're still yet to adopt AI. You don't know that people in marketing are using AI to draft emails. People in different departments are using AI for this, but you don't have a comprehensive AI adoption policy and framework and systems and what kind of data in the organization needs to pass through AI. But people are using AI anyway. So another study tells us that only 10% of enterprises have robust governance frameworks for AI deployments because guess what? This thing is happening by the day and people are getting really confused as to how to govern and get AI working properly in their organizations. So in projections, talking about losses due to non-compliance can actually get to over 10 billion according to research that was published by Forrester in 2026. So when you look at these numbers, you need to read them again. 78%, more than half don't know what AI they are even running in their organizations. Only 10% actually have a governance framework that they can look at, and 10 billion in US dollar projected losses due to compliance issue just from ungoverned AI in sales and marketing. I mean, this is mind blowing. But here is what no one or no headline is telling you, that this is not just a European kind of regulation problem. It's a multi-jurisdiction storm, and it's already here. So it doesn't matter from what part of the world you're running your business and you're using AI, governance is going to be something that you need to take seriously. So if we take the US, for example, look at a state like Texas, which is the second biggest economy in the whole United States. Um, Texas Responsible AI Governance Act that was signed into law last year in June of 2025. It took effect in January 1st of this year, and it's already enforceable right now with penalties of up to 200K per violation. So, and here is the line that most legal briefings will bury for you. It says, oh no, this AI Act of Texas, it has some safe harbors if your organizations substantially comply with the NIST AI risk management framework, which is a federal framework. You have an affirmative legal defense. But guess what? The framework isn't just best practice, it's a legal shield. So when you look at other states like Colorado, you look at other states like California, New York, and you begin to see that state by state, they are coming up with different AI regulations. So the whole world would have to align to governance of AI. So leaders who see AI governance as just kind of a compliance burden right now, you are already losing. Let me show you the opportunity inside the obligation. So here is the frame or the reframe that I need you to write down, and write it down because this is going to change everything that you know and do about AI. Governance is not the tax that you pay to operate. In 2026, governance is the asset that lets you win, the customers that your competitors will lose because people who will not be compliant are going to lose clients. So think about what AI governance actually signals to a buyer, a partner, a regulator, a patient, a job applicant. I mean, all your stakeholders. It signals what? It signals that we know what our systems do, we know who is accountable in these systems. And when something goes wrong within our systems, we will make it right. So that signal in an era of call it deep fakes, in an era of bias and scandals, AI errors that would cost people jobs, loans, it's one of the most scarce, valuable things in the marketplace right now. So if you look at IBM's research, it says it plainly. Real competitive advantage comes not from chasing AI capability, but from building AI execution systems. So operating models talk about where governance, talk about deployment and integration, talk about how these things speak to each other so that no one is harmed by your AI. No one has kind of disadvantage just because of being exposed to your AI. If you look at a recent Gartner report, it says 40% of enterprises will demote or they will abandon some of their AI autonomous agents by 2027, because guess what? There is the mad rush. Everyone is going for this kind of agent, this kind of system. But specifically, why would they be doing this? It will be because of governance failures. They will be unable to govern this, not because the technology didn't work, but because governance wasn't built into this technology. So those companies, guess what? They're going to lose customers, lose contracts, lose regulatory standards. And guess what? The ones who build the governance framework, they will inherit these customers. And for me, here is a principle that you want to memorize if you're growing any business and you're adopting any any kind of AI, especially in things like healthcare, in things like education, in things like HR, hiring, and all that, the companies that survive AI governance moment won't be the ones with the best intentions. They will be the ones who can prove their intentions. So, which brings me to the proof of stack. Let's prove this. The three-path framework that closes the gap between good intentions and demonstrated trust. So, I want to give you something that you can use this Monday morning. The law is complex, the framework is simple, and it maps exactly what the EU Act and every serious governance body is asking you to demonstrate. What are they asking you to demonstrate? Let's look at three layers that can help you prove you can build from ground up your AI governance system. Number one, inventory. Know what you are running. Know all your AI system, because guess what? There is an adoption rush. The Cloud Security Alliance, for example, found that more than half of organizations still lack a basic AI system inventory. Guess what? They don't know how much of AI, what tools, think about what models they have adopted, because there is a rush, there is a mad competition around adoption of AI. And here is the brutal logic: you cannot govern what you cannot name. So you cannot classify risk in a system you don't even know that that system exists. So you can't prove accountability for a decision that is made by an agent that isn't even on your register. You don't have it. So the first layer is simple. You need to build a list. Every AI system that you've adopted, every AI agent, every automated process and decisions that you are using in your production, you have to name it, you have to own the document, and you have to talk about what's the purpose. Why do we have this? What is the data that it's actually processing? What decisions does it affect? What populations does it touch in terms of our stakeholders? So this week, before you want to go ahead and do anything else, you want to audit your AI assets. What kind of AI? I mean, irrespective of your size of organization, as a small business myself, you're adopting all kinds of AI tools, you're building this, you're putting this into your system, you need to have inventory. And guess what? If you discover that maybe you have 800 agents running, if you're a big organization, and IBM's enterprise data says an average organization that does things like that. Oh, guess what? If you have inventory, you're not in crisis. That is clarity. And the clarity is the first level of proof. You need to know, what AI do I have? What AI do I have? So if you're just joining us, we're on the clarity mandate, and you need to have clarity about what kind of AI are you using right now. Layer number two, classify. Know what you are risking. Once you know what you have, the next thing you need to know is, what's the risk? What's the risk? So an applied AI study of over 106 enterprise AI systems actually found that 40% had unclear risk classifications. That means that companies are deploying AI in hiring, in credit, in healthcare. They don't even know whether they are running at low risk, at high risk system. I mean, think about it. And they don't even know the level of compliance or non-compliance problems that they are facing. And guess what? That is a leadership problem, because classification is not a legal exercise. It's a moral one. It's a leadership problem. It's it asks, who does the system touch? Who amongst our stakeholders, internal, external, does the system touch? What happens if it's wrong? How wrong can it be for someone's dignity, someone's livelihood, or safety? What is at stake here? So you need to map every system against high risk categories. Look at the risk that the EU has put in their systems, and you you can look at all those depending on the jurisdiction that you are in. You want to have it according to the jurisdiction. How consequential is the harm that if this system fails, if this AI system actually harms our people, how consequential? So the higher the consequences, the higher the obligation to comply. So for me, that's logic. That's logic. You want to become compliant. You want to do things in a way that is proportionate to the governance and regulations, and you don't want to go out there and begin to defend the indefensible. So you want to classify your risk. Number one was know your risk, know what systems you're using. Number two, classify them. And three, proof. You want to build the evidence that survives a regulator. You want to build something that whether you're dealing with EU regulators, you're dealing with US regulators, you're dealing with regulators across different jurisdictions, whatever system of governance you have in place works. So here is where most organizations fall apart. They have a policy, they have principles and document, they have an ethical statement, and their belief, genuinely their belief, that that constitute governance. And for me, it does not. It does not. Vision compliance put it simply. Most organizations are aware of AI and AI Act. They are aware of this governance frameworks that exist, but very few organizations understand what it actually requires of them. So the regulations wants you to go beyond policy statement. Proof is not a document that describes your intentions. Proof is not a document that says, oh, I want to do this. Proof is an audit trail that we can see when we look at your organization data systems. It's looking about things that can be reviewed, reviewable things that demonstrates your intentions in practice, not just on documents, your intention. And here's what the law actually requires of you. You want to prove your process, your risk management procedures, your documentations. It shows how your systems were designed, how they were tested, how they were validated. So you need to have some kind of proof oversight. So a real trained human being with real authority, and not a checkbox kind of form, a human being that actually works on the system, who can monitor the system, and that must be, there must be kind of a designated human oversight over your system, not AI overseeing AI. So not kind of theoretical oversight, effective oversight, that you can actually see the proof and you see how this will redress things like when the system fails, what will a human do? And when the system needs to scale, what would a human do who is accountable for the system? So you're looking at all these things. How is harm corrected? If the system harms stakeholder ABC, how is that corrected? How is this system managed as a whole? So you look at so this is the layer, in my view, that ends the trust that really lasts. The process, the oversight, the redress. The process, the oversight, and the redress. Build the evidence for all three layers. So that is your proof of stack. That is what separates the leaders who will thrive in this decade from the ones who will lose customers because they are harmed by your AI systems. They are affected, and you will lose not just customers, you will lose contracts, and you will lose maybe including employees. So let me offer these thoughts from a wisdom lens, and I'll be transparent that I'm shifting into faith because guess what? All my work is integrated into who I am, and which comes from a faith perspective, because faith actually anchors all my work, all my strategy work. And guess what? There is an ancient proverb. The one who is faithful in little will be faithful in much. So we read this sometimes as a character advice, but I want you to read it today as a governance architecture. So trust, Deep institutional generational trust. It's never built in a single large gesture. It is built by accumulating bit by bit, bit by bit, small, verifiable faithfulness, documented decisions, honored commitment, errors owned and corrected. You make a mistake, you own up and you correct it. The audit trail that says we are accountable every day. When one thing goes wrong, we are going to fix it, and we are accountable even when no one is watching us. That is exactly what the proof of stack is. It is discipline. It's being faithful in small things that you already have documented things, so that you can be entrusted with large. You can grow your enterprise. You can win more contracts. You can have more employees. The law is simply catching up to the truth and the wisdom that has been from time immemorial. So your word is only valuable when the evidence can actually back it up. So here is your mandate. Not someday this week, as we begin to round up this episode, you want to audit your AI estate, whatever. It doesn't really matter what size of business you are running. It's good practice to audit what you have. List every AI system, every agent, every automated decision, every tool that you use in your production system. If you can't name it, you can't govern it. If you can't govern it, you can't protect yourself legally and the legal repercussions that may come. So you don't want, the next thing is stop confusing a policy with proof. What we really need, what the systems, what the governments, what the regulators are asking for is proof. Pull out your AI ethics document. Now ask, is this system, what is the intent of this statement? Is it backed by data? Is it audited? Is it reviewable? Can we actually, if you can distinguish between just a policy document and something that can be audited, something that is reviewable, you need to relook at it, because guess what? Governance is not just policy. Governance is something that you can actually back it by data. You have an audit trail and you can see how it benefits your organizations and who is accountable for what. So you need to align your work to all the other frameworks that already exist, whether you are looking at the NIST AI framework, whether you are looking at different jurisdictions, whether you're in Texas, the EU, and as long as you're doing work that is touching humans, touching healthcare, touching education, and all that, you want to be aligned. You need to refrain from the kind of revenue driven strategy. Governance, you want to take governance very seriously, because you don't want to win a contract today and tomorrow you lose the contract. Guess what? Why? Because you were not compliant. You need to take compliance as a trust building opportunity. You want all stakeholders to trust you. So you don't want to be in a business that you are waiting, oh, everything is deferred, I can defer it to 2027. You want to take the August 2nd deadline from the EU seriously, and you want to see what you need to do to put your house, get your house in order. So the companies that will survive this decade are not the ones with the best intentions. They are the ones who build the proof, and the proof takes time. That is why the countdown really matters to you. You want to have your own countdown clock, which is why look at the 46 days. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of days, but you need to take that kind of seriously. So I told you at the start that this was going to be a roadmap. This wasn't going to be a warning, and the map is clear. You need to audit, know what kind of AI systems you are using. You need to look at who is being harmed or who does these systems touch, and you need to then build your AI proof of stack, your inventory that will help you. So the countdown is running, whether you are watching or you are not watching. And August Second, we'll find two kinds of organizations: the ones who built their proof of stake and the ones who are still trying to finish a policy document. So guess what? One of them will get fined and one of them will get the contract. The question is, which one do you really want to be? I am Dr. Vivian Atud, and this is the Clarity Mandate, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Recording stopped.